I'm Catherine Tomlinson and I started an eco-conscious pottery company called Oxford Clay. So I don't just make pottery, I make resources for other potters wanting to be more eco-friendly in their pottery practice. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's about sharing everything I've learned along my eco-conscious pottery journey with you. And I'm so glad you're here with me. Let's go. Hello, welcome back to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about making your own metal oxides from recycled metal. And this is something I've just kind of started doing fairly recently in the last couple of years. I actually didn't know that you could do this before, but after loads of research and investigating, I found this really good method, and I've been using this two colourants now in my pottery practice that I've homemade myself from recycled metal. So I want to just talk to you in this episode about exactly how I do that. It's very easy because you only need kind of household ingredients to make your own metal oxides. Right, so the first thing to tell you is, why would anybody want to make their own metal oxides? It sounds like a lot more effort than just buying them from the pottery supplier. And yeah, I suppose it is more effort than buying them from the pottery supplier. But the thing is with commercially made metal oxides is that they're actually one of the worst ingredients for the environment in pottery. So it's because they take a lot of energy to mine and to process, and it's because a lot of the energy used to mine and process them has to come from fossil fuels. So, in terms of carbon emissions, air pollution, there's also a lot of kind of in terms of the people that mine a lot of the metal oxides, artisanal mining might be involved in mining them, and that's where people are kind of self-employed. They don't have any health and safety equipment, and they're not working in safe, hazard-free working conditions. It's a very dangerous job. So when you make your own metal oxides, you're kind of circumventing that whole supply chain. You're taking metal that's already in the supply chain, as a finished product. You're not kind of, mining any more resources to make your metal oxide. You're taking what's there and you're recycling it into a new product, a new colorant that you can use in your pottery. So it is a fantastic thing to do. Okay, I'm going to just do a health and safety notice before we carry on. So metal oxides, if you're attending a pottery class, they might have told you, they might have been no eating or drinking, when you're glazing, and the reason for that is you really don't want to be ingesting any metal oxides. A lot of them are highly toxic, basically. So the basic rules to keep you safe when you're around metal oxides are no eating or drinking around them, just in case you accidentally kind of get them on your hands and ingest them. It's a great idea when you're actually making your own metal oxides to use gloves so you don't let it touch your skin. It's a great idea because we're creating powder. It's a great idea to use an FFP3 face mask that will protect your lungs. Also goggles are a great idea because you just don't want any metal oxides to be kind of going in your eyes or in your lungs or anything like that. Okay, so safety note is over. Let's just talk about the two metals I found that make fantastic colorants. They're very easy to make yourself in pottery. Okay, so the first one is Iron Oxide. And it suddenly dawned on me at some point that actually rust that you just see, you see a rusty gate or railings or something that's made of iron. That rust is iron that's oxidized in the atmosphere, and that's what rust is. And so it got me thinking. I wonder if you could use this rust as a colorant, and you know what? You absolutely can, and it makes a kind of beautiful kind of brown colour. It works really well with glazes in like a high, with like a high flux, say like an ash glaze or something, where the oxide really mixes into the glaze as it's fired. So yeah, you get oranges, you get browns, you get some blacks, just like a commercial iron oxide. But I'd say you get kind of a more depth of colour with using rust, because some of it's orange, some of it's brown, some of it's black, if it's very thick. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. So the way I make my iron oxide from rust is basically I find some rusty metal. So I have like a wheelbarrow on my allotment that is very rusty, and what I do is I put on gloves. So for safety warning with rust, you really don't want to get cut with rusty metal. So kind of dirty metal can give you like a health condition called tetanus. So just be so careful that you don't cut yourself on the rusty metal. And if you do, seek medical advice. Just like really look after yourself with like the rusty metal. So what I do is carefully, so I put on gloves and I carefully just get some sandpaper and I sand off the top layer of the rust into a plastic dish. So just sand it off. You can also scrape it off. Say if you had maybe like a stainless steel kind of Brillo pad or something like that, nest of stainless steel, or if you had like a wire brush you could use as well, or just a piece of sandpaper. So you sand it off and you get it into your dish, and it's a powder. So yeah, obviously like wear your face mask as well when you're doing this. You don't want to be breathing in any of that dust. But that powder is iron oxide, and you can use it just like you would use a commercial iron oxide. So it's amazing. So you can add it, you can basically, I like use it and mix it with water. Sometimes I mix it with a teeny bit of glaze and water, and then I paint it on my pottery. So onto like design. So I've got like a dragonfly pot I do, and I paint it onto like the wings and the body. And it's so beautiful. It comes out like so beautiful. You can also sprinkle it on, and then you get kind of like more differentiation in colour, because some bits are like much thicker than others. You get like very fine speckles. It comes out more speckledy if you sprinkle it on. And you can also just add it to glazes to colour the whole glaze. So iron oxide is usually used a little bit stronger than other oxides. So it's some glazes it's used to kind of up to like maybe 6 or 7% in a glaze, or you can try lower, like maybe 3% of a glaze. So yeah, the world's your oyster, in terms of this colourant. It's very cheap, it's very easy to get hold of, and yeah, it's readily available for you, just kind of all around railings, gates. The only thing to say as well is just make sure your iron oxide, make sure your rust doesn't have any paint in, because you really don't want to be like firing paint, so flecks of paint. So try and kind of scrape the paint off or whatever. If there's little bits of paint, you just don't want them in your oxide, in your finished oxide powder, because yeah, you really don't want paint. Sometimes paint can be toxic as well if it's old paint. Okay, so let's move on to the second oxide that I actually make myself, homemade oxide, and that is copper oxide. So copper oxide, but copper actually oxidizes itself. If you think about like in the air, in the atmosphere, basically. So if you think about those kind of those beautiful buildings with like green roofs, maybe some church spires or something like that have been made of copper, and then in the atmosphere they've gone that beautiful kind of greeny blue colour. And that substance on the copper is known as verdigris, and it's a really ancient pigment that has been used for hundreds of years. And actually painters hundreds of years ago used to use it to actually make the colour green in their paint. So we can use this colour, this verdigris pigment, in pottery. We can fire it into our work. And it makes a kind of greeny blue colour. It's absolutely beautiful. So in terms of the strength of verdigris compared to commercial copper oxide and copper carbonate, so copper oxide is the strongest pigment. Copper carbonate is a bit less strong in terms of how much you need to create colour, and then verdigris is probably like the even more weak colourant, basically. Like it does. The thing to say about verdigris is you can fire it up to stoneware temperatures, and it makes this beautiful green colour. But if it's like overfired, the colour can start kind of burning out and kind of disappearing. So that's one thing I found. But what I found in a normal stoneware firing, especially if the pots aren't at the very top of the kiln, if they're kind of, a little bit cooler, kind of in the middle of the firing, the verdigris comes out really well. It's absolutely beautiful. So so just to say, you might need like a little bit more than you were used to using, in a commercial kind of copper oxide or copper carbonate. But verdigris is really easy to make. So let me tell you how I make it. Right, so what I've been doing is, so you can make verdigris actually from brass, because brass has copper in, or you can make it also from, just scraps of copper. But I actually make it from copper wire, which I found to be really good for making verdigris. So what I do is I actually go to my local charity shop, which is, where people like donate goods, and then the charity shop like sells them to people. A lot of people donate goods that are like broken electricals, or just like, erroneous cables that don't really fit anything. So I asked them to collect all these things. They actually collected so much stuff for me. It was incredible how much stuff they get that they can't sell. But, if it fails its kind of electrical test of safety and stuff. So they collected all these wires for me, and I paid them for it. So I paid them more than they would have got, if they sold the metal as scrap. So so collected all these copper wires, and then what I do is I take off the outside kind of plastic casing of the wire, and inside you're left with this like very pure, beautiful copper metal. It's absolutely fantastic. So what I do is I collect it all together, kind of nest, and then I put it in a dish. And then what I do is I spray it with a solution of salt and vinegar, and this kind of mimics what would happen naturally over time if copper was just left to oxidize naturally in the atmosphere. So what I'm doing is I'm speeding up that process, and it grows the verdigris really well on the outside of the copper wire. So in a few days, it usually takes about 3 days to make the verdigris, and it's all around each wire. You've got this like greeny blue beautiful color just developing basically on the outside of the copper wire. Then what I do is I put on gloves, my face mask, my eye goggles, and then I crush the verdigris off the wire. So it just basically crushing the wire, the powder falls away, and you're left with this incredible green verdigris powder. It's absolutely incredible. So that is an oxide that you can use in your work. So again, just like the homemade iron oxide or just like commercial oxides, you can use it, you can literally mix it with water, paint it on the outside of glazed pottery, or you can mix it into glazes. You can sprinkle it on as well. I've had like really good effects just like sprinkling it on. So you can add it as a colorant into glazes, and you might need to just experiment with like how much you need, because it's quite a weak colorant. You might need like perhaps a little bit more than a recipe would suggest for copper oxide or copper carbonate. But it makes this absolutely incredible, beautiful green colour. And again, it works really well with glazes which are high in flux. So that would be, glazes which basically can run quite a lot in the kiln. So because I do dishes which are kind of contained, they have the sides, when it can make the glaze run basically more, but it's okay because it's on a flat surface. So I paint it on again to like these dragonfly designs, and I paint it onto the wings, and because it's flat, it all kind of mixes into the glaze. I've got no problems with it like running down the side or anything like that, sticking to the kiln shelf. But that is something that metal oxides can do. They can make your glaze actually like run more. So it's that both of those metal oxides are like just fantastic, very easy to do. They just take a little bit of time, a little bit of work to make them, but how incredible that you can make your own oxides. So you can, if you're going to like adult education classes or evening classes or something, or in that educational setting or community pottery setting, You may be able to just bring in your own oxides just in a little jar or something. They might let you do that. But otherwise, if you're making your own pottery, this is like a fantastic way, at home or something, or you have your own pottery studio. This is a fantastic way of kind of moving away from commercial metal oxides where, those supply chains can not be great for the environment or, people, animals. You don't have to sort of be part of that supply chain where, people are mining them, artisanal miners, or, it's being mined, the raw ore is being mined, from the earth. You're circumventing those supply chains, and you're recycling metal already there. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode on making your own metal oxides. Like I said, you can do it. It's very achievable. And if you want to learn more actually about how to make your own metal oxides, I go through the whole process in Eco-Conscious Pottery Glazing, that book, which is available on the Oxford Clay website. I also have a specific video course on making your own metal oxides from recycled metal. So that just goes through, it's a video of me making them so you can see exactly how it's done. It has a workbook with like the recipe and all the different steps and stuff, and then it's got like also how I actually apply them to pottery. So if you're interested in like learning exactly like how that's done in a video course, that's again available on the Oxford Clay website. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode, and I will see you next time. Happy potting until then. Bye. So if you enjoyed that and you're interested to learn more about eco-conscious pottery, head over to the Oxford Clay website, which is www.oxfordclay.co.uk. I can't wait to see you there.